Perfect. It's now recording. Okay. Um, my first question, can you tell me your first and last name and spell it out for me?
My name's Matthew Rogers, Matthew Rogers.
And what would you consider your title?
I'm a practicing attorney in the 10th Judicial District.
So as I kind of told you, so my story today is about, Matthew Brown and those duck hunters who hunted, in Sweetwater and them getting cited for, using a firearm within the city limits of Sweetwater. Can you explain to me a little bit on, the defendant's side, or I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not as informed about you're on the side of the defendant, correct? Or
Yes,
is it
that's
the,
correct. Um,
yeah. Can you explain to me a little bit about that side and your arguments um, for that,
sure,
state law, city ordinance, all that?
sure. We'll start from the bottom and kind of go to the top. The city of Sweetwater has an ordinance in place, a local municipal ordinance that bans the discharge of firearms within the city limits of Sweetwater. They're authorized to pass those ordinances and laws, but our higher authority, the state of Tennessee, has kind of taken some of those rights for cities to regulate away from them, and for good reason. Cities get their power through state legislature. So the only reason the cities can pass laws is because essentially the state allows them to do so. There's a Tennessee state law, 3917 that preempts any municipality or smaller body of government from regulating the sale, exchange, discharge, or even now the use of firearms, um, because they want the laws to be the same statewide, and the state should control those things. That statute that preempts the city from doing that does carve out an exception that says cities are allowed to prohibit the discharge of firearms in their cities. But it doesn't just allow them to do it as they see fit. It says they can prohibit the discharge of firearms except where the discharge is expressly authorized or permitted by state law. We have some very strict and clear state laws that say um, Tennessee citizens and residents have an absolute right to hunt and take wild game as long as they're doing it lawfully and within the laws that are set out by state law. There's even a constitutional amendment that acknowledges and preserves Tennessee residents' right to hunt and take game lawfully. So there's essentially a conflict of law. The defendant's position is the higher law, the state law, and essentially our Constitution should override the city ordinance.
And and now reading the appeal in the court, um, it stated that you kind of mentioned this. There is no state law to potentially prevent it. Can you explain to me about the city and the state and like what is put in place right now? Does Sweetwater have the authority to ban the firearms within their city limits?
The city can ban the discharge of firearms within the city limits, except where it's authorized or permitted by state law. You said appeal. I think you're reading the trial court's opinion. We're going to the Court of Appeals now, but um, the trial court, we believe, wrongfully concluded that because there wasn't a state law that said specifically you can hunt in the city of Sweetwater, then he says they're allowed to regulate the discharge of firearms. Our position is the state doesn't have to pass a law city by city. They passed a law that says you can hunt these types of games statewide. And so, as long as you have permission to hunt on the land, you own the land, as these gentlemen did here, and you are hunting within the seasons and with the traditional means as regulated by the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission, comes from the state, then the city of Sweetwater can't stop you, or any city can't stop you. And when I say any city, this case arises out of a city ordinance, but it could have a statewide impact. Essentially, if this were to stand and we were to lose on appeal or the law wasn't changed, cities could essentially take away the power of the TWRA, that law enforcement body, the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission, and essentially usurp Tennesseans' right to hunt game. And I don't think that's what our legislature intended when they passed these laws. They intended to preserve Tennesseans' traditions of hunting and taking game, not to prohibit it.
And yes, again, I'm not as more about the technical stuff. Yes, the opinion is what I'm reading. They
Yes.
mentioned that there were other, like in Memphis and some other places. Matthew told me a little bit about this, that they're able to hunt within city limits as well. But can you explain to me what the difference is maybe here in Sweetwater than the other places like in Memphis that, was able to, hunt within city limits?
Sure, there are hunting clubs, hunting preserves, government owned hunting grounds within cities all over the state. I don't think there's ever been, that I'm aware of, a situation where the city doubled down on attempting to regulate the discharge of firearms against people that were lawfully hunting. There have been some attorney general opinions through the years when this issue came up in different cities and different scenarios. And even our attorney general over in Nashville, on three different occasions through the years, has said, hey, we understand the city can pass these laws, but they can't circumvent hunting regulations by passing these ordinances. So I think the cities in those scenarios listened to the attorney general and said, whoa, we're not going to go down that road. And here, little old city of Sweetwater has made a challenge. And so these gentlemen that I'm working for, they're pushing back, and they're pushing back hard because it not only affects them, it could affect hunters statewide. And these gentlemen are willing to foot the bill to make sure this law gets cleared up.
And you kind of mentioned this, but yeah, if this law does stand, or how would you think, in your personal opinion, it will impact hunters, and not just duck hunters, just hunters in general in Tennessee,
Sure.
statewide?
Essentially, if the trial court's ruling stands, cities could ban anything, such as discharging a bow and arrow to hunt deer or any type of firearm. They could essentially use city ordinances to regulate hunting seasons. Or maybe even counties could catch on and decide, depending on the local legislatures, that they wanted to, increase certain populations of animals or not, or ban certain activities. It would essentially make this a city by city, county by county hunting season state. And that would create chaos, and it would effectively take power away from the TWRA that protects and regulates game seasons statewide. If the city wanted to regulate this particular piece of property, they could have bought it, but they didn't. My clients bought it, and we believe they have a right to hunt on their own property because the state gives them the authority.
And I talked a little bit this, with Matthew about this. He also said that even though they were, close to neighborhoods or schools, they were legally a distance away to be safe. Can you explain, just in, the court side of things, the argument of they had safe practices, being far enough away, not causing harm to anyone in the surrounding
Sure.
area?
Sure. I want to say this. These gentlemen aren't reckless reprobates out there firing off guns for no reason. They are responsible. All six of them are responsible businessmen, valued employees where they work. They did their due diligence. They called legislators, they called local law enforcement, they called TWRA, and they even reached out to the city when and before they purchased it to let them know they were going to be hunting, but they were going to be hunting safely. These gentlemen have families, they have careers, they are responsible citizens. They were on, I believe it was a 17 or 20 acre parcel of property. I'd have to go back and look. And they were hunting out in the middle of it, a safe distance from anything that could have been in any danger. I think they actually supplied some video of one of the shoots to one of your other reporters, and it just shows like any duck hunting scenario. They have their trained dogs out there, their shotguns, and they're doing things lawfully. I'll also say this, that doesn't necessarily matter legally in this case because they weren't even charged with recklessly discharging a firearm or endangering any of the citizens of the city of Sweetwater because they weren't. They were simply charged, each of them, with two counts because of the two hunts of simply discharging a firearm inside the city limits of Sweetwater. They could not make a case for reckless discharge because they were being safe. And their defense to that ordinance is they were hunting game and they had licenses to do it. They had the federal approval to do it, and they were within the traditional means to do it. And so they were lawfully hunting.
Is there anything I didn't specifically ask you that you want people to know about this case?
The court, in its opinion, mentioned Article 1, Section 26 of the Tennessee Constitution that the defendants were relying on. They do rely on that, and that's the right to bear arms, similar to our federal constitutional Second Amendment. But the defendants were more so relying on Article 11, Section 13, which was a specific constitutional amendment that protected all Tennesseans' right to hunt and take game. And when there's a constitutional amendment, that's the most sacred of all laws. And we think that the Constitution, along with the statutes, protect these defendants from being prosecuted for discharging a firearm when they were lawfully hunting. Um, the Constitution's one thing. When you add that with the statute, that's a preemptive statute that prohibits anybody but the state from regulating the use of firearms. You've got the Attorney General's opinion, and even the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Association puts out publications about how to safely hunt in the city limits of municipalities. All those things added up, we believe, very easily trump a city ordinance that bans the discharge of firearms. Now, you can't, if the city wants to, they could ban target practicing, but they can't ban discharging firearms during lawful hunting.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Those are all the questions that I have. I really appreciate you taking your time out of, especially on this holiday week, to talk to me about this.
It was great to meet you. You're a lovely young lady.
Oh, thank you. It was very nice to meet you too.
Same. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Please done recording.